My name is Snow, and I'm on a journey to teach you model making for VRChat. Join me on the path to learning Blender, Unity, and more. Interested? Let's go! Alright, I get it. You want to learn how to put clothes on a model. We're gonna do that today. So, on our to-do list, we have goals. Get sweater on model. Pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory. We gotta go through a bunch of steps in order to actually do it, but I won't go too much into detail about the use of actual tools. We'll also weight paint the sweater, because why would you use the original bones when you can custom make it specifically for your model? And we're gonna clean everything up, make sure everything is merged properly, and make sure that it's easily exportable to Unity. And then we're gonna test it to make sure that all our weight painting is absolutely el perfecto. That's our to-do list. Let's hop straight into it. So here I have my Blender model, and it's Ghost. I purchased him on Gumroad a while ago, and I quite like him. But he needs a sweater. He's clearly a little cold at the moment. And we got a sweater here, and it's huge, and we love it. But the sweater was grabbed off DeviantArt. So what do? Well, first of all, this sweater is an object at the moment. It's not. There's an armature underneath there and the sweater mesh itself, but we need to get to it. Now, there is complicated ways of doing this. We're going to do it the simple way. We're going to make sure that our hoodie is selected, and we're going to hit Fix Model. This is going to turn our hoodie, and press OK, into an armature with a couple of extra bones that we don't really care about. And it also changes all of our view stuff, as I don't have any textures imported for this model. This is completely useless to me. So I'm gonna go back to non-shaded mode. I'm gonna hit Studio, and I'm gonna hit Random. And that will just color things in random colors based on materials. As you can see, sweater's purple. Next up, that sweater's too big. So what do? We scale it. Now, if we press S on our keyboard, we can scale things down. And let's get it scaled to about the right size for the model. Now, your sweater or pants or whatever else might come in bigger or smaller or whatever else. In our case, our hoodie was way too big. Now it looks about right, and it looks like the sleeves reach about the right place. So our scaling for the time being is complete. So one thing we can do is we can actually line up the sweater to the model. So let's go to the side view by pressing on our little compass here. Press G, press Y, and place the sweater exactly where we want it. That looks pretty good to me. What do we do next? Well, next thing is most likely going to be editing the sweater's pose, as I don't want to move my character's hands to fit the sweater. As the sweater is already weight painted, I can move the sweater to fit my character hands. So let's select our armature and make sure that it's the blue hoodie. We're going to start pose mode. We're going to click on our shoulder at first, because we need to raise the shoulders a bit. And we're going to go to Tools. We can mirror anything that we do as far as transforms are concerned in pose mode by checkmarking X-axis mirror in our tools. So now, anytime I rotate something, it's gonna rotate. Now we have a problem. This sweater is weight painted very poorly, and we don't like it. We can try fixing the model again using cats and see if this helped. And in this case it did, so we'll be happy. If it didn't, then no worries, we're going to be removing this armature anyways, so you can just move your model's arms down instead. So let's go ahead and hop back into the view that we like, which is just random colors, and let's go ahead and adjust the sweater. Now I want to raise the shoulders, And I want to raise his arms so that they somewhat match our model. And there we go. We can also rotate the elbows a little bit to make it a touch easier for ourselves. And some people don't realize this, you can scale. You can scale bones in pose mode. So there we go. We got our hands completed and our sweater is somewhat on. Now we need to make sure we apply as rest pose. This will set a default pose for the sweater, and that's where it's going to be. Before we do anything else, I think the sweater is in the right position and I won't be moving it very much more. So I'm simply going to press Control A and apply all transforms. What this does is essentially, on the item, it zeroes out our location, rotation, and scale. If we Control Z, this action. Oh, actually, I guess it was already applied, but it's a good practice anyways. Tools, items. Yeah, it appears it was already applied by setting cats to fix the sweater again. But normally it's a good practice to press Ctrl A and apply transforms to both armature and the sweater itself. Okay, what do we do next? Well, we need to fit this. One thing that we have that is not particularly nice is this ponytail. I don't like how it's here, and I don't think transferring weights from the ponytail accidentally is going to be a very good option. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slide into the DMs of my model. I'm going to click on body because that's what the hair is attached to. And I'm actually going to separate it by material. Now, I'm also going to create a new collection here, and everything that is not the body, I'm going to move into this collection. This will make it a lot easier for me later to reattach stuff, as everything that's not body related is going to be grayed out. So, body, model creation, and separate by materials. Boom. Let's go ahead and remove the hair by simply hiding it. Now, all of these things, as you can see, everything we put in the second collection here is now grayed out, so we know exactly what was part of the body before. Makes it nice and simple. We'll also not have a little icon over here. So our hair does, but everything else doesn't. Now we're also going to go down here and click on the little arrow key at the top. And we're going to click on the body. And we're going to make sure to toggle this off so we can't click on the body anymore, only the sweater. This is just for beginner friendly sake. You can either do it or not do it. It's completely up to you. It's entirely your way of making models, but if you want to simplify things a little bit for yourself, then having it non-clickable is a good idea. So let's move on. We want to fit the sweater to the body, and the way we're going to do it, I've seen people do shrink wrap and I've seen people do a bunch of other stuff. We're going to do it a little bit more creatively by using sculpt mode. In sculpt mode, the number one thing is your brush size. Your brush size should be nice and big, almost always. You should be able to get most of the body with your brush at any point in time. And if you need to shrink your brush, instead of actually pressing F and scrolling in and out, or moving your cursor in and out, we're just going to zoom in because that's going to affect a much smaller area. So first things we're going to do is we're going to get our grab tool. Now we're going to make the brush nice and large, and we're going to start going from the side, as we can only move things in a flat X, Y and Z direction, I guess X and Y direction, because as we're viewing a 3D model on a 2D screen. So from the side, we're going to start pulling things out, like this sweater. I'm going to zoom out a little bit just so I can do things a little easier. Now, if I keep doing this, it's going to be fairly bad. And this sweater is mostly symmetrical, so something we can use is in Tools, Symmetry. We can mirror it on the x-axis, and that should help us get everything nice and symmetrical. Get the sweater over our shoulders, where it's supposed to be. And we're not going to worry about where the old bones were, and I'm going to zoom out significantly here and pull the sweater back. Zoom in a little bit closer, and I'm controlling the brush size just by zooming in and out. And it makes it significantly easier, as if you're too close and your brush is too small, you end up with little bumps. So if we tug this back, and then back, and then back, that slowly stretches the mesh around. Now realistically, with 3.0 models, you don't need to do this perfect, as most people have toggles for taking sweaters and whatnot off. But we're gonna do a pretty good job here, because we like doing a good job. And there we go. Now the other arm is a little bit more wonky, and that's just due to symmetry not lining up quite properly, and we're gonna turn off our X mirroring once we get a little closer to that part. We're gonna pull the sweater out, and we're gonna hide our abs, and we're gonna make the sweater a little bit more sweatering by pulling it out and making it slightly more baggy on them. It is a sweater after all, you gotta be comfy in them. Now that the sweater is more or less fitted, we are going to turn off our mirror, and we're going to go in here and do this. Now, I'm going to time lapse the rest of it, and I'm just going to adjust everything that I think needs to be adjusted, and we'll be back in just a moment. Alright, so there we go. I think I'm quite happy with how the sweater turned out at the moment. Oh, looks like I missed a couple of parts. A couple of places. But I'm pretty happy with where the sweater is at the moment. So let's go ahead and figure out how to weight paint this thing. Now, luckily Blender allows us to transfer weights from one mesh to another. Now there's a complicated explanation of how vertex groups work and what they actually store, but for us we don't care. We're simply going to take our armature for the sweater, we're going to press X, and we're going to delete it. We don't want it anymore. We want it to fit to our model specifically. So how do we do it? This is very important, so take notes. We will enable clicking on our body. We click on our body, make sure our body selected first. The original mesh where all of our original weight painting is will be clicked first. Then we shift and we click on our sweater. Now we want our body to be orange and we want our sweater to be brighter orange. Or whatever colors you have set up for secondary and primary selection. And we're gonna go into weight paint mode. Now the sweater already had some kind of weight painting on it, and we don't particularly care for it. We're not gonna delete anything, we're simply just gonna transfer the weights over it. And in order to do that, we're gonna go into weights, transfer weights. Now don't click anywhere because you have a little pop-up at the bottom now. If we click on it, we get some more options. First things first, we're gonna go to our vertex mapping, and we're gonna set it to nearest edge interpolated. Next, we're gonna set our radius to 2 meters, and we're gonna set our source layer selection to by name. And that's it. Click off of it and you're done. Make sure not to click on the model itself, as you'll weight paint it accidentally. And we're done. Now, we won't be able to do much with the sweater at the moment. If we move the model, although the weight painting is there, it's not actually going to affect anything in any way, shape, or form. And I missed a spot. So what do we do? Our sweater will have a modifier inside the low modifiers tab. It's called armature. We need to assign the object of the armature to our main armature. This is very important. If your model doesn't move, this is the reason. Next, we could right away add it to as a parent, but we have a bunch of stuff here already and we don't quite want to do that just yet, but we are going to enable our bones. Now our bones are a little hard to see and we don't really like hard to see bones. So we're going to click on our bones, click on the orange square, go to visibility, viewport display. We're going to set them in front so they're all in our face, and we're going to send them to wire just to make them a little easier to see. You can also send them to, I believe, bounds? No, it appears it's not letting me do it at the moment. Well, that's okay. There's a way to set them as simple sticks so that it's not as distracting, but in our case, we don't particularly care. Right now, we just want to test our model and see how well the weight painting took to it. So, in cats, we're going to start pose mode. We're going to take our arms, and we're going to move them up and down. That looks pretty good. Same thing with this. We can see that some weight painting did not transfer over properly, and that could simply be to the fact that we don't have quite enough mesh here in order to transfer it over properly. We can add something there, but for the time being, that's not too big of a deal. We can take our main chest and we can pull it down and make sure that it collapses okay. Same thing with our spine, as it can rotate occasionally in VRChat, and that looks pretty good, pretty solid. If we move our legs, we might have a little bit of weight painting there, but in this case we didn't get low enough for that. We can also move our head and see how much of the hood gets weight painted to it. And in our case, we actually did pretty good. A little bit in the back, but that's not too big of a deal. Your neck should never cram this far anyways. And let's pull our arms forward and make sure nothing clips there. Let's rotate our arms around this axis and make sure nothing gets too distorted there. And let's go ahead and drop our shoulders. And make sure nothing gets distorted there. And things look really good. This is pretty clean as far as transfer is concerned, and our only issue is the elbow, as we haven't quite reached or brought over the extra geometry for the elbow here. Now what we can do is in edit mode, if we select the sweater, that is, in edit mode we can press 3 and C to select this specific portion of the sweater. And try not to select anything else. And let's select this portion of the sweater as well. And we're gonna hit F3. That will pop up a little menu for us to search up some functions, and we want to search up tris. And the first thing that pops up is tris to quad. It's bound to all J, but we don't particularly care. What this will do is it will turn these into quads for the most part. Now it won't work for your entire model. It's gonna almost 100% mess up, so I don't recommend doing it. But in this case it did pretty good, and I just want to add maybe a little bit extra geometry here. Now we can take a look at our rotation, and we can see the elbow's working much better now as we have more geometry to work with. The elbow bends better. Now realistically it would be better to just drag this down a little bit with us, but in this case, it's going to be up to you on how careful you are with these areas. And there you go. This is how you weight paint a model. Now, if you do have issues, you might need to come in and actually fix a couple of armpits. Problems with armpits that you might have, especially in models that are a lot more apose. And if you don't know a model that's apposed, the arms will be coming down this way a lot more. This is much closer to a T-pose than anything. In that case, you'll have very, very close spacings here, and you might need to adjust weight painting around this area and bind it to the chest. But I'm not going to go into detail on how to do that, not in this video. But there we go, we have our sweater attached. Same process goes for attaching pants, necklaces, little accessories like bandanas and whatnot. Unlike the old times in VRChat, we do not, and I mean we do not need old armatures anymore. We can simply bind things directly to the model, and we can blend it with the model's original weight painting. Now, if you don't have a model underneath the clothing, then that's a completely different story. But in this case, I have a model and it's fairly well painted. So I'm going to use and abuse any kind of way I can in order to make this model as good looking as possible. Now, we still need to combine all of these meshes, and I'm going to make sure that my body is selected as a main here, and I'm going to hit Ctrl J and join it all together and rename this body. We want to keep the names as consistent as possible. Now this is our sweater, so let's rename that as sweater. And now let's take a look at actually attaching it to the armature, or attaching it to the hierarchy, as right now it sits outside of it. In order to do it, you can simply go to your yellow square, relations, parent, and find your armature. Now make sure your armatures are named as well, as we don't have anything extra anymore. And if you copy any files over, you're going to need the armature to be named exactly the same as your original model. But there you go, you have attached a sweater. It's all weight painted, tested, and ready to be thrown in. And as far as the second collection is concerned, you can simply drag things back up there and delete the collection. And there you go, you have a nice clean file. Now, one thing to note is if you're exporting FBXs through here, make sure that apply scaling is set to FBX all, or else all your dynamic bones are gonna go completely to waste. Aside from that, I hope you enjoyed this fairly quick tutorial on how to attach a sweater, or in particular anything that needs weight painting transfer to it, to a model with a full mesh underneath. If you don't have that full mesh, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to learn weight painting. Again, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this taught you something, and I'll be getting back to making the step-by-step tutorial series where I'll go significantly more in depth about how to use the tools, why we're using it, and what individual things are. So that, you don't have to look at a tutorial like this, you can just understand Blender.